This video is about my new sail. As you can see, it's a boomed lug sail. I was inspired by the sail used on the Sailau from Papua New Guinea. There's lots of interesting things about these boats, and when I first saw footage of them in action, I realised actually I didn't know anything about Proas. There's lots of different ways of doing things. Notice in this video, as well as the steering oar, there's another man holding an oar in the water at the armour, so it has a leeboard like my boat. I read that the Sailau sail is inspired by the Australian Pearl Lugger, which is funny because the lugger is actually a gaff rig, but the Sailau actually is a lug sail. As well as just trying something new, it looked like a good way to have a big sail that might also be reefable. This footage is from the second time I took it sailing. I hadn't put the reef points in yet and it was quite windy. It did seem quite a bit more difficult to shunt than the crab claw, but then I have had a lot of practice shunting the crab claw by now. Nothing went wrong this time, but clearly there were a few opportunities to snag things. And unlike the crab claw, which has a spar in the luff, it was now necessary to adjust the tension in the sail, making the backstay more important, where previously it just stopped the mast from falling over and didn't actually need to be under tension. When a gust came, I did get some good bursts of speed. Over 10 knots there. With the leeboard slightly forward, I could point really quite high, although there was the risk of backwinding the sail. I posted a few stills from this footage on the Proa Builder Facebook group, and people told me I should put the attachment point further forward on the yard, and that should give me a tighter luff. So I tried that next, but first, here's how I made the sail. I was currently out cruising and was a long way from my sewing machine, so I hand sewed it on the beach. I started by taping it in place so I could haul it up and see what it looked like. After a few adjustments, it looked like a sail. This shot gives you a better idea of the shape, and my idea was to reef it from the corner so it became a crab claw, which I like to make as just a straight equilateral triangle. I made tie points all along the sail, hand sewed them on, reinforced with a bit of webbing strap at the back, and then I melted the holes with my soldering iron. Melting is a much better way of making a hole in something like this than a drill, because it won't leave any tears at the edges. In fact, it'll leave a hard point. But then unfortunately, I entered a prolonged period of very calm winds, so I didn't really get to test the reefing point. I was still in the South Island now, and the calm winds actually started to make a problem. I wanted to get back up north before it got too cold, so there wasn't actually a lot of proa sailing after this. The trip back up might make it into another video, but a couple of months later I did get the proa out again. I thought I needed to include some footage of what could go wrong while shunting, so getting some good footage of that was my plan on this sunny midwinter's day. So the first problem here is that the yard is actually on the wrong side of the forestay, and then I don't quite completely understand this yet, but the boat completely turns around and I get backwinded. I think it's because when the wind is really light, just moving the sail pushes the boat. Oh, and there was also a snag on the shunt line. However, when it is this light, it's possible just to paddle it around. There's not very much wind, so going 4.8 knots is actually a pretty good portion of it. Once I got the sail on the right side of the stays, I also managed to do a couple of shunts without anything going wrong at all. This one was under 30 seconds, which isn't record breaking, but is respectable, I think. In practice, it's a lot more important to be able to shunt reliably than to be able to shunt fast. This camera angle was also good for recognizing that my boom is actually really high, so I didn't actually get very close to the Sailau shape, and I could perhaps make this sail even bigger. However, as it is, it does actually work quite well on this boat. A couple days later there was some very good wind and I thought I'd go out for a sail. I'd say the wind was about 15 to 20 knots, and once I got out from the lee of the land, it became quite an exciting ride. A friend of mine who races catamaran says, "Don't reef, just sail faster." This was a bit like that. At the start I needed to sail to windward a little bit to clear a reef, but then I could bear off into just a close reach. I'm still actually going to windward, but mostly across the wind, and you can see from the little map on the left hand side that I actually sailed a really quite straight line. And you can see from the graph below that I actually held on to like a good speed the whole way across the harbour. I have had plenty of bursts of speed up to over 10 knots, but average speed is more important, and here I was able to hold on to 8, 9, sometimes hitting 10 knots just the whole way across. It actually really didn't take very long. It's actually the middle of winter right now, and I was pretty soaked, and I was getting a little nervous about the upcoming shunt. It helps a lot to make sure that the sheet and the shunt line is clear. And I've got a feeling with this sail actually being a bit windier helps, because it sort of blows the sail out. There's the braiding lines clear, pull the sail over, pull the shunt in, pull the tack in, and then I realised that the lee board needs to come back a bit. Grab the main sheet and we're moving again. And call that 30 seconds. On the way back, my peak speed was actually higher, but it wasn't as consistent as the way there, and I think I'm going to put that down to the fact that when I was going across, I was just sailing across the harbour. When I was coming back, I was trying to get back to my boat. And also now I was actually sailing slightly downwind, which is a little bit more difficult to hold steady. But there were some pretty good bits too. Like, look how long I'm managing to fly the armour. Still out. Just skim the surface. Still out of the water. Still flying. Oh, I'm not going to count that. Still pretty much, yep. It didn't splash. It didn't splash. But then this is weird thing, is sometimes sailing hard downwind, it just suddenly like zooms, picks up speed and suddenly turns down. One of these is coming up, I think. Just like suddenly turned downwind, and I had to release the sail to turn back up, and then you hit the water and it slows down quite a lot. I mean, still doing 6 knots, which is, I mean, it's fast, but it's not 9 or 10 knots. Perhaps the answer is that when I'm sailing fast downwind, I actually should scoot forwards a little bit and sheet in. So, because the apparent wind comes forwards. Might be something like that. I also set a new personal speed record. I've hit 10 plenty of times, but here I get up to 11.5. But then I realised a little bit later I go even faster. 11.8 just for a moment. Also pretty much, now I can pretty much just read the speed from the spray flying. Yeah, if it's flying up in the air, you're going 10 knots. Yeah, so what's next? I think the next thing I'm actually going to put telltales on the sail so I can, just see the airflow, see how well it's going. And also I'm going to put a hiking strap or something so it's a little bit easier to get further out and balance myself. I suspect I'm getting pretty close to the maximum speed for this boat, but I feel it still has things to teach me. Yeah, so thanks for watching the video. Thanks for watching all the way to the end. And if you want to encourage me to make more videos, the best way to do that is definitely to post an enthusiastic comment telling me about, what you enjoyed. That's the thing that makes a big difference to me. I don't really care if someone clicks like or subscribe or, whatever. I'm doing this for the comments. So thanks very much, everyone. Keep shunting and catch you next time.